Hi guys, welcome. Danny here from the Magic Junk Drawer. So I wanted to talk today about the first house in astrology. People get so confused when you talk to them about their charts. Like most people, the very minimal basic thing that they know is what their sun sign is. So let's just say, for example, me. I know that my sun sign is Pisces. I happen to know my sun is in the 10th house, but we're not even going to go there. Well, let's talk about the first house. The first house is the house of self. So whatever sign you are, for me, Pisces would be in my first house. But, you know, I don't even know what the name of that chart would be called. That's like the, if you're a Pisces is in the first house. So like when they say, oh, Venus is moving into your second house, for me, that would be when Venus moves into Aries, because Aries would be in my second house. It would be Pisces, Aries, Taurus would be in my third house. But in my natal chart, what's in my first house is Gemini. So what does that mean? Now, this is what makes me different from a Pisces who has the sun in their first house in Pisces, different from someone like me who's got the sun in Pisces, but Gemini is in my first house. The first house is the house of self. It's how people see you. So people may see me more as a Gemini. I'm very flexible. I don't usually I don't usually make a stink about things. Like for example, if I get in line at the bank or the grocery store and the line is out the door, I'm not going to be the person that's going to scream out, hey, why don't you open up another line? Like, that's not me. I'll stand there because I'm just not like that. Like, that's not my personality. I don't get annoyed easily. I'm kind of easygoing, but I'm changeable. I can change my mind a lot. I can see things from both sides of the story. Sometimes it makes it very hard for me to make a decision. Gemini are not real great at making decisions. They kind of like to not make a decision and then that's their decision. You know, like you stay in a job until, like for me, I worked for A&P until they went out of business. And not because, you know, like every time I thought that I was going to quit, you know, I wasn't going to work there anymore for whatever reason. It fit into my schedule. I didn't leave. I don't know, that was just me, whatever. For one reason or another, I wound up staying until the universe made the decision and the company went out. Which happened to be, today is the 22nd. Our store closed 2 years ago yesterday on the 21st. But that's a story for another video. So your first house is how people see you. And the thing is that I've noticed in my experience with astrology is sometimes what's happening in the first house gets reflected into the 7th house. Like imagine a mirror. The sun hits the mirror and then there's like a blinding light across the street. Or if like the sun hits the metal on the car, the sun reflects across the street. Sometimes that happens. I worked with a woman actually at A&P who was extremely smart, very, very smart woman. And she was like retired and she was just working there like pretty much just for something to do. And brilliant, brilliant woman. She spent her whole life as a scientist. She worked in a lab and she was a Pisces. But to me, she felt and she came off much more like a Virgo. First of all, the medical thing, the lab thing, that's all much more Virgo. She was very detail orientated. Like she needed to have her drawer had to be organized a certain way. She was very particular and meticulous about things, which is much more Virgo than it is Pisces. But in some people, that's just how the sun is reflected. Sometimes the sun reflects more in the opposite house. My father's a Virgo and I'm a Pisces, and as much as we can be very different, we're very much alike, especially when it comes to like the organizational skills or maybe lack thereof. So that's something too that's pretty interesting. I've known a lot of Libra Aries that You know, like a lot of my friends that are Libras that come off more to me like Aries. And I don't think I know any Aries though that come off as Libra. Aries come off as Aries. They're a pretty strong sign. But I've had a couple of friends that, you know, things fly out of their mouth, or they say things and they come off to me much more of like an Aries than a Libra. But sometimes it's true that what's happening in your first house is reflected in the opposite house. So if you meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, this person does not seem at all like a Libra would totally not say that. It could be because there's like some kind of the sun reflecting into the 7th house. And what's the 7th house? It's the house of partnerships. Partnerships, marriage partnerships, business partnerships. So the same aspect that you could get married under is the same aspect that you may open up a business with a partner. So there are all kinds of partnerships. And especially in this day and age, like we're reading charts that these charts have been read this way for years and years and years, when like, you know, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, people got married much younger. People didn't live together. Like people got married before they moved in together. Like it's kind of different. You know, like now you have to have an even more open mind about what you're looking at, because sometimes, you know, just because you're not married in the eyes of the state doesn't mean that you're not married. You know, like that's what it's showing in the chart. And let's face it, it's what goes on in your heart and how you treat each other that makes the marriage, not what the law says, you know. So it's very interesting. The first house is the house of self. So you look to the planets that are in that house. Now, if you don't have any planets in the house, you have an empty house, then you look to the planet that rules that sign. So I'll use myself for an example. I have Gemini in the first house, but I also have Saturn in the first house. So Saturn kind of rules my personality. I am never late. I am always on time. If anything, I'm early and I'm sitting in the parking lot because I hate being late. I hate rushing. If Saturn wasn't there to give me that and the house was empty, then being that Mercury rules Gemini, we would look to Gemini as one of my ruling planets, which it is because Gemini is there. But we wouldn't look so much at Saturn, we would look to Gemini because Gemini rules Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. So what does that mean? I'm a thinker. I overthink everything, and then I rethink it, and then I analyze it, and then I unanalyze it, and then I rethink it, and then I drive everybody nuts, and then I start all over again. That's me. Mercury. Mercury rules my first house, which makes me a thinker. It also makes me a little bit more susceptible when Mercury goes retrograde. It kind of throws me off a little bit. Mercury in the first house also helps me as a public speaker. I'm not afraid to publicly speak. I'm okay standing in front of a crowd. Mercury can give me away with words. I know how to say things much nicer than some people. Like I had a friend and she would say it right to your face. I just don't have a way with words. And like I remember her coming out with a lot of things that came off very nasty, and she didn't mean to be nasty. She just couldn't put it together in a nicer way. And that was just her, you know. It's not right or wrong. It was just who she was. Like she just couldn't, like I was going through this thing at one point with my hair where I was like coloring it or bleaching it or whatever I was doing, and it was like crazy colors. And we were in the grocery store once and she was like, I'll never forget it. She was like, your hair is like 50 different colors. And I was like, yeah, I know. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't know, but it's like the way that she said it was like, oh my God, what's going on with your hair? It's like 50 different colors. It's like, we know, we've been through this. Like, I'm trying to correct it. It's going to take a couple of months for me to get it back to what it should be. Like, whatever, you know. But me, I would never have said it like that. First of all, I wouldn't have said it in public. I wouldn't have said it in front of other people. And I wouldn't have said it like that. It doesn't make me better than her. It's just that's what it is. So when you know what's in your first house, it kind of defines your personality and how you deal with people. If your house is empty, then you look to the sign that's in that house. You have no planets, but Capricorn is in your first house, well then you look to Saturn because Saturn rules Capricorn and Capricorn is in your first house. And this is how we go through the entire chart. And then we break things down into how many water signs, how many cardinal signs, how many air signs, you know, the different aspects. Are there any grand trines? You know, we look at things like that. And then sometimes, like I could look at my chart, like not look at it for years and then look at it and see something that I never saw before because something else pops out at me. So it's very interesting, and it's like a lifelong kind of studying, because you're always learning and there's always something different to pick up. It's very interesting when you start looking at charts. So that's the first house, the house of self. It's who you are. It opposes the 7th house. So sometimes there's a little bit of duality there in between what's going on in the 1st and the 7th house. The 7th house might tell you a little bit about the kind of partners that you like or the kind of people that you end up with, because that's the 7th house. So sometimes you might find that their sun or their moon sign or even their rising sign falls in your 7th house. Okay, that's it for today. If you like what we're doing here at the Magic Junk Drawer, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and share us with your friends, and we will see you soon. All right, thanks guys. Bye-bye.